So I think that technology changes the world for the better. And I mean, we're talking about technology for good, not social media stuff. I think that entrepreneurs who have a passion for something like health can take that passion and apply it to their experience. In my case, entrepreneurship and tech, and build products that are going to help make people's lives better, be healthier, provide tools to the healthcare system that will allow them to do testing faster and save people's lives.
What, in your opinion, is the most important factor in successful leadership of a technology team or business? Is it knowing the technology? Is it knowing the people? Is it resilience, self-awareness, experience, qualifications, or something else, or all of the above even? Well, to try to answer this question, I'm joined today by Sonia Couto in this, the final episode of our mini-series that we've been doing for December, which is all about things the AI can't do for you, specifically technology leadership in a business environment. In this mini-series so far, we've had some great perspectives from people like Justin Tan about the very specific technology aspects and how to leverage that as a manager. We've spoken to Chris Wood about the stress management aspects that are very critical to any successful leadership, but especially in such fast-moving environments as technology companies so often are. We've heard from EdTech CEO Matt Warden earlier this week about his journey from software developer right the way up to CEO. And then yesterday we spoke with Kerry Elbass about transformation and change and how to do that effectively and successfully. And so to round off the series, who better to talk to than a tech founder? Sonia is a 2-time technology company founder, managing director and board member. She has over 17 years experience in the tech industry. She's a breast cancer survivor, and she's also been a woman navigating the complexities of a male-dominated field. So all of that requires significant expertise, determination, and resilience. Her passion is very deeply rooted in technology, entrepreneurship, and health, and we'll be talking about those later in the episode. And today she is dedicated to mentoring founders, helping them overcome some of the early stage challenges that she herself has faced in her tech journey so far, all whilst still managing her own company on top of that. So this is going to be a quite wide-ranging conversation. We're going to hit some very important topics, and I've no doubt that there'll be some really useful stories and experiences shared that will help you in your journey towards successful technology leadership.
Welcome to the Leading with Integrity podcast. Leadership talk for the modern manager. With your host, David Hatch.
Sonia, thank you for joining me this morning for you, this afternoon for me. It's great to meet you. It's great to have a chance to talk to you today. Really looking forward to it.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it as well.
You're most welcome. Yeah, and we'll start off, I think, by handing over to you, really, to introduce yourself to the listeners, tell them a bit about your career history, your background, what you do today, and why you do it.
Sure. So my name is Sonia Couto. I live in Toronto, Canada. I was actually born in Portugal. I moved to Canada when I was 10. I'm the middle of 5 kids. I have 2 older and 2 younger, so I'm like right in the middle. So I'm very scrappy as a result of that. I have been in the tech space for 17 years. It's something that I love. I'm very passionate about. I started out by working in a software development company, and out of that, I've grown in my role. I'm now managing director. The company got sold to an investor a couple of years ago, and they asked me to run it. I've also built a couple of startups as part of that company. I also started a venture fund that's part of this company as well. So, tech is something I love. I have a cat who's my baby, and I love to travel in my spare time, spend time with my friends, my family. I live in Ontario, so it's a beautiful province. So lately, I've been trying to explore it more. They say you never really know your own backyard. So I've been trying to explore a little more, and I've realized how big and beautiful it is. So I'm trying to do a lot more traveling within Ontario now as well.
Yeah, I think that's almost a common theme, isn't it, for a lot of people since COVID, obviously having to readjust to the travel restrictions. I've heard that quite a few times recently. A lot of people in the UK as well are doing that a lot more than they might have a few years back.
It's amazing to realize like how the country that you live in, how beautiful it is, and how you don't always necessarily need to leave to enjoy it or to feel like you're going away.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You don't have to go far for a decent holiday, do you?
Yeah, exactly.
Depends where you live, I suppose. Maybe that's not true for everyone. But.
That's true.
So, 17 years in tech then, so you must have been part of some interesting companies over that time. Can you tell us maybe a bit more about some of the businesses you worked within or started yourself as well?
I've worked a lot in the manufacturing space. So building like enterprise solutions to help manufacturing companies evolve and stay up to date with having teams in different countries. A lot of manufacturers don't manufacture in Canada anymore. They're, in Mexico or different parts of the world. And so they need systems in place that all of their employees globally can access. So we've helped a lot of companies build out systems that way, even for like a lot of sales teams and things like that. And then we've also built out like some amazing projects that are just interesting for startups. So we deal a lot with startups and helping them get a minimal viable product to market so that they can test the market and possibly bootstrap or start getting some funding. And because we've had a lot of experience in just building software in general for companies, we help founders sort of navigate through that. I worked on a really large project for a mining company that was a project for about 5 years that I think we were a little over our head, but I learned so much from this project. They were a massive global client, and it took a lot of effort to get this project off the ground, and then kept it going. But it was really nice to work with such a massive company. It gave me the opportunity to learn a lot from it and then apply it into later on our own products that we've developed and taken to market. So one of our products is called Menusano. It's a nutrition analysis software for the food service industry that allows manufacturers and restaurants or food facilities to analyze their dishes and get compliant nutrition labels instead of sending the food to a lab. So we service globally, but we work with databases, government source databases from Canada, which is the CFIA, the USDA, and we also have labeling for the UK. The other product is called Field Eagle, which is a digital data collection tool. Basically, it is for high-risk industries like oil and gas, mining, construction, where you have to collect data out on the field. Usually that's done manually with a piece of paper and pen. And we've automated that on a tablet. And then it allows, once an inspector is done collecting all the data or doing an inspection on site, they sign and submit. Everything goes up to what we call a company portal, which is a central hub where reports are generated quickly. They can take photos, notes directly on the tablet. It basically eliminates the whole hassle of doing something with paper and pen. And it speeds up the process of getting your reports done. Usually that, it depends on the industry they're in. It can take, 3 weeks to a month to get a report done. A lot of these companies get paid when they process the report. And now we're allowing them to generate a report in 5 seconds. So it really helps them automate their process.
That's quite a time saving, isn't it?
Yeah. Two very different industries, but nice industries to learn from.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so, I know you have quite a few passions, but I guess 3 of them in particular would be the technology sphere, the entrepreneurship, and then also health. So how do you see those 3 things overlapping and complementing each other?
Well, that's a good question. I think technology improves lives, right? So my passion for technology, entrepreneurship, and in health, and health is for many reasons. I'm also a breast cancer survivor, so I'm very conscious. So I think that technology changes the world for the better. And I mean, we're talking about technology for good, not social media stuff. I think that entrepreneurs who have a passion for something like health can take that passion and apply it to their experience. In my case, entrepreneurship and tech, and build products that are going to help make people's lives better, be healthier, provide tools to the healthcare system that will allow them to do testing faster and save people's lives. I mean, like, diabetes is a global pandemic, right? And I feel like nobody's really doing anything about it, but there are tools that can be and will be going out into the market that you can't cure diabetes, but you can maintain it and you can prevent it from getting worse. And it's all through diet, right? So I think that technology can really help provide tools to consumers that are going to help them be more aware of what they're doing with their bodies, their mind, their nutrition. And I think that's really the benefit of combining all three together.
Yeah, I mean, I guess even things like the kind of the wearable tech, and that must have a huge crossover to the health area as well.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, years and years ago, we didn't know much about the foods that we were eating, the benefits of walking and heart rates and good sleep. We just sort of like were out there, right? But now all of this technology has come out, like you said, wearables. Like now you can count how many steps you took per day and how many calories that burned, or what was your heart rate. There's even tools to meditate that measures your brain waves. So it teaches you over time how to meditate better, how to control your heartbeat, how to breathe properly. Like that, all of that stuff didn't exist many years ago, but I think it's only going to keep getting better. I bought the other day, which is so interesting. So I have a hard time falling asleep because I have a hard time shutting my brain off. So I bought this little device that you hold in your hand, and it basically does like acupuncture in your hand that sort of helps your body relax so that you can go to sleep faster. So, you know, that's just an example of technology. It seems simple, but that's technology at work.
You might show my ignorance about acupuncture here, but how does that work? Has it got little needles in it or something? Or
Oh, yeah, you hold it. It's got like a metal piece to it, and you just hold it in your hand, and you feel like little needles, but it doesn't hurt or anything. And then you just hold it. It turns off by itself. I think it goes on for like 15, 30 minutes. And then you sort of like feel very chill and ready for bed without having melatonin and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, personally, I can't think of anything less relaxing than being stuck with needles, but I mean, does it work?
It does. It works. It does. It's
fair
not,
enough.
It doesn't like hurt. Like it actually is relaxing. I know that sounds weird, but it is.
No, fair enough. I mean, if it works, then don't knock it, right? You mentioned a few things already from your career history. If you had to pick something that would be your biggest career challenge so far, at least, what would you say that was, and how did you overcome it?
So when I was on the team that started these two startups, I was part of the founding team, and it was a team of people that were part of this software development company, Converge. And at a certain stage, I lost the entire team, even the original founder of the product that was part of our team. And so they all sort of like, because starting a startup takes time and not everybody has patience for it. So slowly I started losing them, and it got to a point where I was sort of left completely alone with these products. The original team that had come up with the idea, helped develop it, was gone. And so that was a really hard lesson for me, because it was really hard on me because I felt really alone, and I had these products that I loved and I wanted to see them do well. But it was also a really good lesson. It was actually great now when I think about it, because people leaving gave me the opportunity to sort of take a step back and say, okay, where are we and where do we want to be? And not having as many chefs in the kitchen was actually not a bad thing. And so I was able to put together a plan around where we wanted to go with these products. I had to rebuild them personally, like just, the state that they were in. I didn't feel at the time they were good enough for market. So I hired a new team of people that I thought were better for the specific needs where we were at the time, and hired a team, redeveloped the products, and then we went to market, and we were pretty successful at that. But I think that was one of the hardest lessons I learned, is that, it was lonely for a very long time being there by myself. But, you learn, you adapt, and you move on, right?
I know what you mean about the patience as well. I think there's a lot of people who get involved in startups, particularly as founders, who almost expect this overnight success.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was involved in one myself, and yeah, it certainly wasn't overnight success. It was several years of hard work, at the end of which I left because there was too much. I couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. I wonder if the social media of it has a lot to answer for there, with this kind of the perception that it's really easy to make your millions and all that, especially in tech as well.
Yeah. I think in tech, I think the part of the problem is that there's so much technology in the world that there's this perception that technology is easy to build, because there's technology coming out every, week now. So there's this perception that, like, oh, if I have a tech idea, I'm going to build it really quickly and get it out. That's not the way it works. Technology, software development, it takes time. First off, I just want to point out, software development is an art. You can hire somebody out of their basement. You can hire somebody offshore. They need to be managed. They need to be properly guided on what to do and what to build. Because people just think, oh, I have this idea. I'm going to hire a developer, tell that developer, this is what I want built. Go build it and have it ready for me in a month or two. And then that's it. You have your startup. That is totally not how it works. And also you have to realize that you need the ability to pivot. Sometimes you go out to market with something and you originally had this idea, but it's not working out. So how can you take that and pivot and still go to market with something, but now it's changed, and because you've learned, right? So I think it's just tech. I don't know why there's this mentality around that. I do realize that when the whole VC thing started happening a couple of years ago, and all of these startups started getting like these massive amounts of funding, it did spark a huge trend for all these startups to start. But you know what? Only 20% of startups were investors who invest in startups. They only 20% of them really succeed and they get their return on investment. So the rest of them usually fail.
I mean, the small business statistics, I'm not sure what it's like in Canada, but certainly in the UK and very, very similar in the US, I think. They're not happy reading, are they? Just how long a company survives even. I think it's less than 50%, might even be less than 30%, and make it beyond 5 years in the UK. Yeah. And that's just all small businesses as well, not just startups even. It's because they're all tech ones anyway.
Toronto is a huge hub for tech startups. We have a lot of incubators that try to encourage and teach founders how to, succeed. But it doesn't mean that. I think it also depends on the founder. They have to be ready for all the steps in order to achieve that success. And again, like I said, you have to be really tenacious and you have to be on your feet all the time. You have to have crocodile skin.
Yeah, I think the right mindset and kind of outlook as well is really important, isn't it? Because, as we were saying, if you're expecting to get rich quick and then it doesn't happen, that tends to lead you astray, I find. But, on the software thing, I guess there's that truism, isn't there, about if it was easy, everyone would be doing it.
Oh, for sure.
But then maybe everyone is doing it. They're just not succeeding so much.
Probably.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, isn't it? So the tech industry then, you're very well placed to answer this question, I think, having spent as long as you have in the industry. It's got a reputation for being quite male-dominated. Is that reputation fairly earned, first of all?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, tech is a very male-dominated industry. I think it's changing. It's going to take a little bit of time. Historically, the field has a higher concentration of men, and there are several reasons for that. I believe a crucial factor is the educational opportunities and encouragement provided by young girls at the elementary school level, right? If girls are not introduced to or encouraged into STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, fields early on, they're less likely to pursue these paths later in life. However, the landscape is changing. There's more awareness and effort now than ever to encourage girls and young women to engage with tech. I'm on the board for a organization called Hacker Gals, and what they do is they go into elementary schools at the grade 6 level, and they teach them how to code, and it prepares them for when they're ready to go into high school. Do I want to go into this, right? So it's at the elementary school level. So when they go into high school, they're like, oh, I really love to code. Now I'm going to focus on high school courses that can engage and encourage this. So mathematics and all that stuff. And so if they focus on that in high school, then they can prepare themselves to go into an MIT and things like that, and then get into tech. So I think organizations like Hacker Gals, and there's quite a few out there, their goal is, right now where we are in tech, and the gap between women and men is obviously big, but I don't think we can fix it if where it is now. I think the way to fix it is to start with the next generation and get more girls involved in the education process of it, so that when they grow up, they're going to get more into tech. And they're not just going to be on the marketing team or accounting team. They're actually going to be engineers, and they're going to be developing and coding. And I really think that's the way to go about it. Yes, there's so many other issues with the topic, and equality and equal pay and things like that. But I think we've made significant changes. There's still a lot to do, but I personally just believe that it starts with the next generation. Our generation, we're setting the tone. I also think it helps when companies are conscious about having an equal male to female ratio when they're hiring. And I know that's really hard to do because I'm a woman and I hire a team. I remember there was one time when we had about 70% women and less males, but now it's like 70% males and less women. I do find that during COVID, a couple more women got out of tech. I think it's starting to come back a little bit. But yeah, I think companies who are hiring, if they make a point and an emphasis on, we want to try and have, and when I say 50-50, I don't mean all the women are in marketing. Try to, make a point of hiring women engineers and things like that. I think it helps a company in general have the different thought processes. Women think differently than men. We are more empathetic. We're just different, and men are different, and combining those two together, I think, is great. When you have 50-50 and you have conversations, the thinking process is different, and I think it benefits the company in general.
I think just generally, like, the more different perspectives you have in any conversation or problem solving, the better. There's a couple of things that I hear quite a lot when I have this conversation with people who shall remain nameless. So, I mean, there's two things. One is the age-old argument about I'd love to hire more women, but there aren't any applying for the roles that I'm putting out there. And then the second one, which is possibly related to that, is about, particularly with STEM careers, is there the lack of interest in women, or this argument is also used for other minority groups as well. So, I mean, how do you answer those two interrelated assumptions, let's call them?
Yeah. I think everything takes effort. If a company really, really wants to make the effort to have a 50-50 split, when you're hiring, make sure, if you hire a recruiter, make sure that you tell them, hey, I'm hiring for 2 positions. Find me a male and find me a female, or, you know what I mean? Like, and put that out there. I don't think that we can say that there's no females applying, or for certain roles, or that there's no interest in STEM. I think there is. I think there's probably a shortage of women because the ones that are interested are probably already hired and working in companies. But I think it also comes with a company who's willing to bring on someone junior and train them, right? Most companies want somebody with experience, but you might be able to find someone out there who doesn't have as much experience, and you can hire them and nurture them and teach them and, get them to the point where they need to be. There's also that part, right? And I think, this is not a fact, it's my own personal opinion. I think when it comes to that, I find that companies are willing or more they're more willing to train males that are less experienced than females. I don't know why that is. But I do see that quite a bit. So I think like if you really want to make a change, then you put in the effort, and you really want to have that split, then you put in the effort and you find it. And let's not find excuses for it, right? Like the pool is massive. We have so many tools. We have technology at our disposal to find candidates. We have LinkedIn, and there's Indeed, and all of these. You're going to tell me that you can't find someone? Like, really? I know that's not true because I'm hiring right now and I know what's out there. And there's a lot of females looking for work in tech. So, I think it's based on the effort and how much companies actually want to make that effort.
So maybe part of the problem then is that not enough companies want to do that. And then the next question from that is, why not?
It's more effort. It's more effort, right? It's just easier.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're hiring for an engineer and 20 that apply are males, there you go. There's your pool. Go through it, find the ones that you want, screen them, get out there, right? And if you get 21 and one is a female, but you got all these males that have all this experience, she's going to get put at the bottom of the pile, right? Because out of 20, you might get 5 resumes for women because there aren't a lot of women in tech, right? So I think companies have to say, we're going to do our hiring process is also going to be based on 50-50. If we get 20 resumes, we want 10 that are females, we want 10 that are males, and then we're going to screen them based on their experience, but we're going to make it an equal process, right? Like, at the end of the day, a company is going to hire the best person for the job, no matter what, right? But I think if you make that part of your your search process, then there's going to be more of an equal opportunity there.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think there's a right answer for this, but I think it depends on how much people are willing to go. Like there's certain roles here that I'm like, we need a female for that role. And people are like, why? Like, because it's a role where they're dealing directly with clients. Women are just more empathetic. They're going to have a lot more patience. They can multitask better. There's just things that hey, listen, I'm a woman. I can say it. And sometimes we can't find a woman, and I'm like, no, we need to put the effort in to find one, because I just feel like that's historically we've had males in that role and it's never worked out. So let's just change it up and let's do it. And, my team knows that we're not even going to consider a male for that role. It needs to be a female. So I think that you can also do that. Say, look at the role that you're hiring for and say, you know what, this would be perfect for a female. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to hire a female for this role. And then on your search, that's what you're looking for, right? You're not even looking at the male at this point.
Yeah, interesting.
There's lots of strategies out there that you can try. It really depends on how far you're willing to go.
Yeah. Well, this is it, isn't it? I think you're probably right. It does come down to convenience at the end of the day, doesn't it? And I think, I don't know, we could go into all the stuff about confirmation and unconscious biases and things like that. But I think, ultimately, most people set out when they're hiring to, as you've said, will hire the best candidate, and that's all they think they're thinking about. But then it's about how wide are you casting the net?
Yeah.
how diverse is what you're catching in that net before you even start your actual selection process and so on and so forth. And we could probably spend hours talking about that alone. So
Yeah. I mean, even myself, like when I got into tech, I didn't know anything about tech. My background was accounting and operations, and I got hired by a tech company to come in and run their accounting. And then I took over their operations and combined the two because they weren't doing that. And I'm just scrappy. I want to learn all the roles. But, if a company had not taken a risk on me and said, oh, she has no tech experience, she can't work here. And also given me the opportunity to learn within the company and grow. I have male, mentors who have gotten me to where I am. But somebody took a risk on me and somebody said, you know what, we're going to hire her and gave me the opportunity to learn and grow, right? I think more companies should be doing that. I wouldn't be where I am if someone didn't take a risk on me.
Regardless of the candidate or anything to do with them or about them, but every hiring at a certain point is taking a risk, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I would be very curious. I don't know anything about what the data says, but I'd be really curious to see some sort of statistical analysis about how many risks are taken on male candidates for tech roles versus female.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't even know if that data is collected. It's probably not. That's a question we may never know the answer to. Anyway.
Yeah.
What's the biggest leadership lesson that you've learned in your career so far?
I've learned that it's crucial to surround yourself with other leaders. So, network, for me, not gonna say anybody else. For me, it was around meeting other women that were in positions where I was now going into, and that I could talk to and relate to and learn from. But also, the reason for that is because being a leader is really, really lonely. I think when I started out, I was trying to be friends with everybody, my team, my staff, and I learned very quickly that not everybody, but people will take advantage of you when you're buddies with them. And as a leader, you can't really do that to a certain degree. But then it gets really lonely. You have nobody to talk to. You have nobody to vent to. And there's all these things that you want to be able to do at the end of the day, and you want to talk to people who understand you. So I think for me, it was surrounding myself with other women who were in positions like I was, and starting these networking groups where we would just get together after work, have a drink, and just vent. Oh, and we had an agreement in place that everything we talked about was confidential. And then I also joined a CEO roundtable, which had the same concept. Everything was confidential, but it was about learning from other CEOs and leaders. And it was also sort of like a place to vent a little bit, but getting feedback about, the areas where you're struggling and where you need help, and getting the feedback from them because they've been there and done that. But really, it's a really good outlet just to be around people more like you, because number one, they understand you. Number two, they're going to give you advice, whether you ask for it or not. They just do. And then you're not so lonely, because I don't think people talk about this enough, but it is lonely. If you talk about like tech startups, you will hear a lot of stories where a founder started a tech startup with a co-founder, and then they hired a CTO who was their buddy friend, and then they hired a bunch of developers that were all friends. And then at the end of the day, the founder ends up firing everybody because they had this like relationship of a friendship, and it didn't work because everyone wanted to have a say. And you need to keep professional to a certain degree, right? So I think that's part of the struggle. But yeah, being a leader, I think, is just find other leaders to hang out with, even if it's just like outside the office for fun, where you can have an avenue to, speak your frustrations. You have to let that out.
All of that rings bells for me, I think. It's something, I think, particularly for new leaders as well, and when they're taking that first step up, And especially if they're doing it in an organization where they've worked for quite some time and they've been promoted. So they probably already have a lot of friendships. And then suddenly they're in a managerial position, potentially over several of their friends. And that relationship could get quite strained. And then the loneliness becomes so much worse because you've suddenly lost out on what you're used to in terms of a at work support group, if you like.
Yeah. One of my biggest struggles is, I try to like create this environment of, fun, and we have like games and stuff, and I'm a really nice person, but a lot of people on my team just in general are, I don't know if it's afraid is the right word, but maybe they're intimidated by me. And, I had a meeting with one of my managers the other day, and I'm like, are you like we only talk when we have a weekly meeting. You never come to me outside of this meeting. Like, you and I have no conversations. And I'm like, why? He's like, well, I don't want to bug you. I'm like, but I'm always coming to you and trying to have conversations with you. Like, we have to talk so that we can collaborate. You can't wait to have a meeting with me to come talk to me. So those are sort of the things that, people avoid me. My team sort of avoids me, and it's really frustrating because it's not what I want, but it's just a position that you're in, and you can't help it. Sometimes
that can speak to the culture of companies they've worked in the past as well.
Yeah.
I think there's it's tough. It is tough. I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about management and leadership out there about how you've got to be separate, you've got to isolate yourself from the team, and that kind of creates that loneliness as well. When it's not always necessary, in my opinion. I think it depends on the team, depends on the company and the industry that you work in, and all the various expectations that can have. But certainly, at least I like to think I've never struggled to kind of do both. I think you can be friends to a point.
Yeah.
And it's, like I said, it comes back to those expectations, doesn't it? As long as everyone understands from the beginning, how this needs to work.
Yeah.
It's usually okay. I don't know. I'm quite informal as a person, so maybe it's just, maybe I've not done it right.
I think part of not the problem. I think part of it is also because I'm very outspoken. I don't sugarcoat anything. So someone comes to me and I'm like, that's a terrible idea. It's not going to happen. Right. And I give the reason why, and et cetera. But I have a job to do. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Right. So that's probably part of it.
Yes, you might be right. Yeah. But even then, it's better to be honest, isn't it? It's better to, rather than like 6 months later when they spent all this work on something that you didn't think was going to work.
Well, I might as well kill it now before they keep going.
Yeah. What would you say has been your best experience of being led?
One of my best experiences of being led was I worked under a leader who truly amplified the balance between guidance and autonomy. This leader was adept and providing clear direction and setting expectations, but also trusting me enough to take ownership of projects and make decisions. He fostered an environment of open communication where feedback was constructive, encouraged in both ways. I remember I would go into his office and sit down and be like, "Hey, I noticed something in that department." And he's like, "What?" I'm like, "Well, they're doing this way. Have you thought about maybe like doing this way? Here's the effectiveness I think it's going to bring, and you're going to save money or you're going to cut costs." And he would never shut me down. Although sometimes he'd be like, "That's a terrible idea." No, which I appreciate, but he would at least take the time to listen to me and encourage my curiosity. And I think that's like one of my best experiences.
I think, that's a really important aspect, isn't it? And it reminds me, I think, of something I talk about quite a few times, and some of the listeners have no doubt heard it before. Sorry, guys. But I think, this idea that there's a standard approach to leadership or management even, and that you can't flex it or adjust it. I think understanding the individual is really important. And from the last two questions, things you've said there, I think to lead you effectively, I think people need to understand they've got to be forthright and open and honest immediately. Whereas other people in that same context might not want to have something that confronting. they might prefer a bit of sugarcoating, let's say.
Yeah, I think at the time he knew I was a curious person. I love to learn. And so he encouraged that. And it led me to, man, at one point I had done every role in the company just because someone had left and I'm like, I want to do that until you find somebody. I want to help. Right. And they'd be like, okay, here, you help us until we find someone. And then it would take time to hire. And by the time they hired, I had spent all this time in, practicing this role and talking to different people about it. And it just gave me the opportunity to learn. Now that I'm leading, every time I'm hiring for these roles, I know exactly what I'm looking for because I didn't do them for like years and years, but I've done enough in each role that I know what I'm looking for. And when those individuals in those roles come and ask me questions, I can step in and help problem solve effectively because I know what their role consists of.
It reminds me of a leadership quote, and I cannot for the life of me remember who said it.
So many quotes.
Just mind blank, but it was about, the best way to learn a company or a team or organization is do every job at least once yourself.
That's really what I did.
So there you go. I mean, what better way to learn a business and learn how to lead it?
I'm not a learner, like read a book and I know how to do this. I'm a hands-on. Like it's trial by error. I want to be able to do it, touch it, feel it. And that's how I learn. Right. So I think there's also that aspect of a leadership. You have to understand how people learn and adapt to that as well. Right. You can't just say to someone, oh, I'm going to promote you to this role, or, oh, someone left, you want to get into that role. Okay, here, go read this book. No, you have to have you have to be able to know who you're working with, understand their learning process and adapt to it as well to encourage the growth within the company as well.
100%. I think, it goes back to what I was saying just now about leading individuals differently according to their own needs. It's exactly the same with learning, which absolutely is a responsibility of the leader, is to help people with that personal development. But I think there's really no excuse not to do that these days. I mean, when there's such a breadth of options for learning now, you could point it towards a coach, you could do online learning, live stuff on demand. Some people just give them the book and that'll be fine. But when there's that many different ways of learning available, I think as a leader, you're kind of spoiled, really. You can, it's making your life a bit easier, isn't it?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just about knowing enough to have that conversation and ask that question, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
So we touched on the first time manager a bit earlier, but I certainly think it's one of probably the most difficult career transitions that most people will do, is that first step up into a leadership or management role. What advice could you offer to someone who's doing that in a tech business in particular, who's maybe struggling with that new role, struggling with that adjustment?
For any first-time manager in tech business, specifically those who find new roles challenging, my key piece of advice would be learn as much as possible about each role within your team. Understanding the specifics of what your team members do on a daily basis is invaluable. The knowledge not only aids in effective problem solving, but it also helps you communicate more effectively with your team, understanding the challenges and appreciate their contributions. It's about building a foundation of knowledge that allows you to be both empathetic and efficient as a leader. Remember, a good leader is not just about directing, it's about understanding and supporting your team to bring out their best. So that's my advice.
That's very good advice and aligns well with what we've just been talking about.
What we were just saying, yeah.
There we go, brilliant. Right, I've got a difficult question for you now. I think you might struggle with this one. A lot of people do. If you had a time machine, let's pretend that exists, how far back in your lifetime would you travel, and what advice would you give your younger self?
I would go back to my early 20s and I would tell myself, read lots of books. I'd emphasize the importance of preparing mentally for the challenges and opportunities ahead. I feel like, my life has been a road of challenges, ups and downs that have prepared me for, things, hardships that I've been through. But I think that if I had put more emphasis on reading, and learning more self-growth and mindset, I think I would have been a lot better prepared. So I started doing that in my 30s, but I wish I had done it in my 20s. So I would tell myself to go back and, not read as many science fiction books as I did, and maybe read more, business and just a book that, like, 4-hour work week. I'm not going to work 4 hours a week, probably not, but there's so much value in a book like that encourages you not just to be a good worker, but also being a good leader one day, and just being a good person, or how to manage your work-life balance, or how to manage your life, or how to prepare to create the things that you want, right? These are all things that I didn't think about in my 20s or my 30s until I started reading these books. And these are things that are not taught in school as well. So I think it's I wish I had known that in my 20s.
I don't think reading less sci-fi books is the answer to anything, if I'm honest. Reading more of anything else, fine, on board with that. But yeah.
I've been thinking the science fiction books in my 20s.
Leadership Heroes.
Okay, my favourite question now.
Yes.
It's called Leadership Heroes. If you had to pick one person, they can be anyone you like, alive or dead, past or present, real or fictional, who in your opinion would perfectly embody leadership, who would that person be and why?
Easy one. Easy. Arlene Dickinson. Have you heard of her? So she is Canadian, and she was the first woman on Dragon's Den. So I'm sure you've heard of, Dragon's Den. You're in the UK.
Yeah, we have that here, yes.
She was the first female on that very first season, and she's still in one of the dragons now. And when I started my career in tech, I don't know how, I came across her book, Persuasion, and I just fell in love with her. I loved her story, maybe because it reminded me of me a little bit. I was in my 30s. I had gone through a divorce like she kind of had, and she started her career later on, and she built it to like a massive company. But I just loved everything about her. And what stands out about Arlene is her resilience, her ability to innovate and adapt, and her commitment to mentorship and empowering others. I really love that. She has consistently demonstrated strength in the face of adversity and unwavering commitment to her values and the capacity to make tough decisions while maintaining empathy and integrity. And you can see that about her in the show. Like, she has a lot of empathy. She's not just a leader in the boardroom. She's a role model. She is to me, who shows what it means to lead in both the head and the heart. I just saw her speak the other day at an event, and when I was looking at your question, I was like, yeah, leading both the head and the heart. She's got such a big heart, and maybe it's her empathy that she has. Like, she's such a good businesswoman, but she cares about people, and you can see that in her. And I think it's profound. It's influenced me, and I think she's the best.
Well, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, pretty good definition of a hero there in everything you've said. So I can't argue with that.
I mean, it's like, I think like 12 years later or 15, I don't even know, but I still, every opportunity I get to go see her speak, I will do it. There's always something new. She's like, she never stops. I feel like at this point she should be retired, but nope, she's still going. She's innovative. She just started a huge fund for food startups in Canada. Like, she never stops, and I just admire that about her.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I'll be honest, I've not heard of her, but that's because I think she's in the Canadian version of Dragon's Den, which we won't get here, sadly. So I'm going to have to go and look her up afterwards.
Yeah, look her up. She's amazing.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, thank you for the recommendation then as well. Yeah. Excellent. Well, it's been lovely chatting with you.
You too.
This morning, this afternoon, it's both. It is both.
Yes.
It's morning, it's both, yeah. If any of the listeners would like to learn more about you, and I'm sure they would you like to point them towards your own website or perhaps your own podcast, which is almost ready, I think?
Yeah, I think the website is good because it's got all the contact information. So converge.com with a K. I'm also on LinkedIn, Sonia Couto. I also have an Instagram handle, which is Techie Sonia C. Sonia is Sonia. A lot of people think there's a Y in there. There isn't. Reach out to me, message me. I always try to respond to everyone who reaches out. And yes, my podcast is launching in 2024. It's called Tenacity with Sonia C. So if you want to hear a little bit more about tech and startups, give it a listen.
Awesome. Okay. And I'll put all of those links, if I can find them all. I'm sure I'll find them all in the episode description so people can find them easily as well. Lovely. Well, Sonia, thank you again so much for being so generous with your time today. It's been excellent talking to you. If I don't speak to you again beforehand, have a lovely Christmas and all the best for the new year. I'm looking forward to your podcast as well.
Yeah, you too. Happy holidays. Enjoy it. And I hope you have a really nice time.
Lovely.
And thank you for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thanks for being here. Yeah.
Thank you.
So many useful topics covered in that episode. I found it really insightful. I hope you did as well, listener. Sonia, thank you so much for your time there and for being so open with all of your stories and experiences. Really enjoyed hearing it, and it was a great conversation, at least for me. I hope it was for you as well. Listener, if you would like to learn more about Sonia, perhaps catch her podcast when it comes out in the new year, I've popped the relevant link in the episode description so you can find that easily. If you are looking for some support with your leadership journey, please do reach out to me as well. You can find the link to my LinkedIn profile in the episode description. So please do connect and drop me a message, or you can visit www.leadernotaboss.com. Subscribe to the newsletter, find other episodes of the podcast, take our leadership quiz. There's all kinds of resources available to you there. So please do make the most of them. And we are nearly at the end of the podcast season now. Not long to go. 2 more episodes. Tomorrow we have our extra bonus episode when I'll be chatting with Annie Margarita Yang about her 5-day job search book, her financial advice YouTube channel, and more. So loads of useful tips and ideas in that episode that might perhaps help you with that New Year's resolution that's just around the corner. And then finally on Sunday, we'll have the Christmas special. So don't miss that one. That's all I've got time for today. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you again tomorrow. And remember, as always, be a leader, not a boss.